What if Matt Gargan, the villain known as Scorpion, ends up becoming Venom in the MCU? Michael Mando, who plays Matt Gargan, posted a tease on Instagram that hinted his character could potentially bond with the Venom symbiote. And this comes straight from Marvel Comics in Marvel Knight's Spider-Man issue 10, where Matt Gargan eventually becomes the third host of the Venom symbiote. Taking on the mantle after Eddie Brock and turning into one of the most brutal versions of Venom ever seen, the MCU has already set up the possibility for Venom to appear, because at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, Venom is sent back to his universe, but not before leaving behind a small piece of the symbiote in the MCU. That tiny fragment might not seem like much right now, but in the comics it only takes a small piece of the symbiote to grow and eventually find a new host. So today we are going to break down how Matt Gargan could start out as Scorpion in Spider-Man Brand New Day, and how that leftover symbiote could eventually bond with him, if Marvel decides to adapt the comic storyline where Gargan becomes Venom. This movie might secretly be setting up the birth of one of Spider-Man's most dangerous enemies in the MCU. In Brand New Day, Scorpion is rumoured to be one of the main threats Spider-Man faces. His suit is said to be a mix between the classic comic design and a more armoured metallic version inspired by the Spider-Man games, while still leaning toward a comic-accurate look. This would establish Matt Gargan as a powerful and dangerous villain early on, someone who could seriously challenge Spider-Man and build a personal hatred toward him. The important part of the theory comes after that confrontation. Spider-Man will most likely defeat Scorpion by the end of the movie, but that loss could become the foundation for Gargan's long-term revenge arc. Instead of disappearing after his defeat, Gargan could remain in the background of the story, holding onto his anger and obsession with Spider-Man. That kind of lingering grudge is exactly what makes him the perfect candidate for something much bigger later on. At some point in the future of the MCU, Spider-Man is expected to encounter the alien symbiote. Traditionally, the symbiote eventually bonds with Eddie Brock, creating Venom. However, this theory suggests Marvel might skip Eddie Brock entirely, and instead have the symbiote attach itself to Matt Gargan. Because Gargan would already hate Spider-Man after losing to him, the bond would immediately create a version of Venom driven purely by revenge. Matt Gargan's Venom is not just scary, it is pure nightmare fuel. And in Brand New Day, the danger does not start when the symbiote finally arrives. It starts the moment we see Gargan as Scorpion. The monster is already inside him, simmering beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to explode. In the context of Brand New Day, this makes him a threat that is both immediate and long-term. Even if Peter Parker defeats him, Gargan's story does not end there. The lingering resentment, the obsession with Spider-Man, and the personal grudge he carries could easily become the driving force behind his eventual transformation into Venom. Before the symbiote ever comes into play, Gargan is already a ticking time bomb. As Scorpion, he was created through an experimental procedure designed to rival Spider-Man's abilities. In the MCU, this could be visualized as a mix of high-tech enhancements and raw physical mutation, a combination that gives him superhuman strength, agility and resilience far beyond what Peter has faced in previous films. But the experiment also damages his mind. Over time, he grows increasingly violent, volatile and unpredictable, turning him into a relentless adversary who does not just challenge Spider-Man physically, but mentally and emotionally as well. This instability could be reflected in tense, chaotic fight sequences, where Scorpion strikes unpredictably, forcing Spider-Man to anticipate danger at every turn. When the symbiote finally finds him in Amazing Spider-Man 1999, issues 568 through 573, it does not have to transform him, it amplifies what is already there. Unlike Eddie Brock, who often wrestles with the symbiote's influence, Gargan would treat the transformation as an upgrade. He would fully embrace the power, letting the symbiote unleash the aggression, instability and destructive tendencies that have always been part of him. In Brand New Day, this could show the progression from man to monster, culminating in the full terrifying form of Venom. In the comics, this version of Venom is often portrayed as barely restrained violence, a creature of raw, overwhelming force. In the MCU, that could translate into some of the most brutal and visually striking action sequences Spider-Man has ever faced. One of the most disturbing aspects of Gargan's Venom is how much he enjoys intimidation. He does not just attack his enemies, he performs for them. He exaggerates the symbiote's monstrous traits, opening massive jaws, extending that iconic tongue and deliberately terrorizing anyone in his path, heroes and civilians alike. Unlike Brock's Venom, who often struggles with control, Gargan would relish his monstrous form, making the symbiote not just a tool of destruction, but a way to assert dominance over everything and everyone around him. For Spider-Man, this makes every confrontation feel personal and dangerous. Gargan is not only physically overwhelming, he is psychologically unhinged. This combination of traits makes Gargan's Venom one of the most unpredictable and dangerous villains in Spider-Man's rogues gallery. He does not plan meticulously or wait for the perfect moment. He attacks with reckless brutality. Chaos spreads and Spider-Man must balance taking him down while protecting innocent bystanders. We see this terrifying version of Matt Gargan's Venom in Marvel Knights, Spider-Man issue 10, where we see him bond with the Venom symbiote. The moment is framed as a dramatic entrance during a massive confrontation where Spider-Man and Black Cat are already surrounded by multiple villains working under Norman Osborn. Just when it seems like the situation could not get worse for Spider-Man, Gargan arrives as the new Venom, announcing his presence as if he would not miss Spider-Man's last stand for anything. As the story continues, Gargan has fully embraced the symbiote and is almost excited about what he has become. Norman Osborn, however, is furious because this transformation was never part of his plan. Osborn had carefully organized the attack on Spider-Man, but Gargan becoming Venom throws everything into chaos. Gargan does not care about the plan. For him, the symbiote is the perfect weapon, especially because of the hatred he already has towards Spider-Man. He even explains that after losing to Spider-Man so many times over the years, he has built up enough anger and resentment to feed the symbiote indefinitely. That rage becomes the fuel that makes this version of Venom especially dangerous. The battle that follows shows just how overwhelming the situation is for Spider-Man, with villains like Electro Lizard and Chameleon all involved in the attack. Spider-Man is pushed to his absolute limit while trying to protect the people around him. At one point, Black Cat is even electrocuted during the fight, making the situation even more desperate. Gargan, now wearing the Venom symbiote, focuses entirely on Spider-Man, taunting him and using the symbiote's power to push him even further. Showing that Gargan's Venom is not just strong, it is driven by years of hatred towards Spider-Man. Despite being overwhelmed, Spider-Man eventually manages to turn the fight around. Once he regains his footing, he begins fighting back against Gargan, and even mocks him, essentially saying that a loser wearing the Venom suit is still a loser underneath it. The moment highlights Spider-Man's resilience, but it also shows how dangerous Gargan becomes once he gains the symbiote. Even when Spider-Man starts gaining the upper hand, Gargan's destructive fighting style causes chaos around them, collapsing structures and forcing Spider-Man to constantly save civilians during the battle. In Brand New Day, this evolution could serve as a spine-chilling arc from Scorpion as a dangerous, but still human antagonist to Venom as a nearly unstoppable force, fully embracing the monster within, showing how a personal grudge, a fractured mind, and alien power combine to create a villain, unlike any Spider-Man has faced before in the MCU. Alongside Scorpion, there are also other villains who could help shape the wider conflict in Brand New Day, such as Tombstone representing the organized crime element of New York's underworld, while Scorpion would bring the raw physical threat. Tombstone could operate behind the scenes, tightening his grip on the city and forcing Spider-Man to confront the larger criminal networks forming around him. There is also the possibility of characters like Boomerang appearing in a secondary role, adding another unpredictable layer to the conflict, while not necessarily the central threat. Figures like Boomerang could still complicate Spider-Man's fight, showing that the dangers he faces are not just coming from one direction, and when you combine that with the possibility of Scorpion transforming into Venom, Brand New Day could end up throwing Peter Parker into one of the most dangerous street-level battles we have seen in the MCU so far. But what do you think? Do you think Venom could appear in Brand New Day and end up bonding with Scorpion? It is a possibility that could completely change the scale of the threat Spider-Man faces. We already know that Matt Gargan, better known as Scorpion, exists in the MCU and still has a personal grudge against Spider-Man. If the symbiote were to find its way to him, it could push that anger even further, transforming him into something far more terrifying as Venom. That kind of evolution could raise the stakes significantly, forcing Peter Parker to face not only a powerful enemy, but someone whose hatred for him has been building for years. Altogether, Brand New Day has the potential to mix personal rivalries, street-level crime, and the terrifying power of the symbiote into one major conflict for Spider-Man. But for now, these are just theories. How do you think characters like Tombstone or Boomerang might fit into the story? We will know a lot more when the trailer comes out soon, and I honestly cannot wait for Brand New Day to finally come out. Let me know your theories and predictions down in the comments below. I would love to hear what you think, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel for more Spider-Man and Marvel content, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next upload. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.